What's up guys, welcome back to Code with Clinton, and in this video I'm going to show you how to build a to-do app using Django and Ajax. Understand? Before we proceed, if you don't subscribe to Code with Clinton, please do not to subscribe now. Just smash the red subscribe button and I'll really appreciate that. Understand? So now let's move to the video. So in this video now I want to show you how to build a to-do app using Django and Ajax. You understand? Now we have a simple front end here with dummy data on it. So I'll show you how we are going to fetch data using the API we built in the last video, so we can populate this to-do application with data we have in our database. Understand? So in the previous video I showed you this video up here, this Django serializers. I showed you how to build APIs using Django. Understand? So in this video now I'll show you how we can use these URLs we can use these APIs links we have here to send data to this other application over here, and which is what we have on the browser here. Understand? So it's not difficult, it's quite simple. We are going to be using JavaScript and Django in this video, whereby we'll be fetching data from a different database. If you watch closely, this is the front end code which points to this. You see we are on, you can see here this is a different domain name. You know, normally our Django domain starts from 8,000, but this is a different domain name, and we have a different domain for our APIs. Understand? A different domain, if you could remember from the last video. So now we are using two different applications. We have the backend and we have the front end. So I'm going to show you we are going to fetch data from the back end to the front end. You understand? So I'm going to remove those data I have on the screen, those dummy data we have there. So I'll simply comment and remove them. So save the work now. You can see they are out of the screen now, those data I have here. So now I'll show you how to fetch data from the back end and populate this to-do app using the APIs we built. So we are going to use JavaScript and Django. So without further ado, we are getting started right now. So the goal of this tutorial now is to send this data from the backend we have here. We want to send them down to this application, a different application, using the fetch API. Understand? So we are going to be able to retrieve. We are going to do a simple CRUD application using JavaScript and Ajax this time around. We're going to send this data to the front end. We'll be able to edit them, able to delete them, and whatever we do here on the front end is going to reflect in the back end. Understand? So that's what you want to do now. So you can see from here, you can see now we have our API links here, and this HTTP down to 8001 refers to this domain we have here. Understand? This domain name we have here, and down here again you can see we have /API. /API refers to this API link down in the, if you down on my right hand side, you can see we refer to our API URLs using this API /. Just normal Django configuration you already know. So API /get to dos, which is up here, helps to get all the to-dos we have in the back end, and API /get to do /id in the second URL, which gets individual to-dos, and the create to do helps to create a new to do and sets to our database, and that's how it works. So now let's create this. Let's create this application right away. And if you can see, as I said before, our front end and the back end are two different applications. They are not small, they are two different applications. So because they are two different applications, we need to do something, and I'll show you that. So here on my browser, I searched for this called Django CORS guide. So I'm going to read what it says to you. It says, what is CORS? CORS is a mechanism that allows interaction with resources hosted on different domains. You can see our application are hosted on different domains. The backend is on a different domain. The front end is on a different domain. Understand? So maybe is this I need to increase this so that I can read along with me. So it's going to be big a bit. So CORS is a mechanism to allow interaction with resources hosted on different domains. For instance, one of the most common scenarios to apply it is with Ajax request. Understand? you can see now we are on 2 different domains, so we need to do some CORS configuration, and it actually means cross sites with requests. I can't really remember what the full meaning of this CORS, but along the video I'm going to show you what it means, understand. So because we are using 2 different applications for this thing, we are trying to fetch data from a different backend to a different front end, so we need to do some CORS configuration on our back end, understand. So scrolling down a bit, you're gonna see what I'm talking about. Before we proceed, we need to install CORS header. So just simply copy this, pip install, copy, come down to your backend, which is this, open a terminal. So we need to install the CORS header, understand. So we're going to use the command prompt. So I'm going to activate my virtual environment. So after you've done that, now you just simply paste this code now and install. You need to do that, pip install Django CORS header. So it's going to install. So after doing this, we have something else to run. So get onto the browser again. Okay, after you've installed CORS header, we need to add CORS header to the installed apps. So copy this. I'm going to copy this, and let's go down to our installed apps in settings.py. So go down to settings.py file. So we're going to add that's what we just copied, and that's it to save. So now go down and get to the browser. We need to do some more configurations. Okay, just scroll down, and you need to also add CORS headers.middleware. This, copy it, and this to be the number 1. It needs to be on the first line. So copy this now, and let's go down to our middlewares in Django. So it should be the number 1 under the middleware. So you paste it there to save. After that has been done, let's continue. So we need one more configuration. So before we can see this CORS alert origins, means that we are trying to this list of domains we have here are the domains that can actually fetch data from a particular website, understand. So this means that we cannot allow any domain to just come and fetch data from our websites, understand. So we can restrict the domain we want to use. We can restrict them by listing the domains we want. But if you want to allow any domain to come and access your data, you can simply use this CORS allow all origins. So I'm going to copy this. So I'm going to just copy it and let's paste just there. So this CORS allow all origins means that any domain can come and fetch data from your database, understand. If you set it once it's set to true, any domain can just come, any website or any application can come and fetch data from your database using the APIs you provided. So now we've done all the configurations. So I'm going to close this now. We've done all the configuration in our settings.py file. We installed the CORS headers. After that, we have to add it down on the installed apps. After that, again the middleware and this CORS allow all origins. And I'm going to put this link in the description of the video, this particular link, so you can read and understand everything it says by yourself. It's not difficult, not long. So I'm going to add this link in the description of this video. Okay, so that has been done, understand now. So we've done the back end already, so let's go down to the front end. Okay, which is here. Yes, so now we're going to go down to the Java. You can see now we're going to open our main.js file, understand. But before you continue, let's make sure that the main.js is linked to the HTML. So I'm going to scroll down. Okay, we need to link this main.js to the HTML file. So we're going to simply do script source should be equal to main .js. They are in the same folder, so you need to like make sure it's connected to the HTML file. So we've done this now, so go down to the main.js file now. So now we're going to use the fetch API to fetch data from our back end, understand? So you can see we have the API URLs here. So now let's start now. So I'm going to show you now. I'm going to use this fetch API tutorial I found online. Very simple, this fetch API tutorial. So I'm going to draw the link in the description so you can read and understand yourself. So now I'm going to show, so I'll scroll down and we'll be using this particular section to fetch data, to send data. It's not difficult using this particular section. So let's start now. Okay, so now in the main.js file, so what we want to do next, I want to fetch data from the back end. We want to get all these to-dos, we want to get everything we have here on the front end, on this application we have here. So now I'm going to simply fetch, I'm going to use a fetch URL. Okay, so now we're going to fetch data from the back end. So we're going to use the fetch syntax, the fetch URL. So I'm going to simply do this now. So I'm going to declare, I'm going to create that URL is going to be let URL. You can call this any name you like. I just picked URL, that's my choice, but you can call it any name you like, you understand? It must not be URL. So URL is going to be coming from here. So I want to get all the to-dos, we have. So that's the first link. So copy this, come down to the front end. So I'm gonna paste that here. So now this is our URL, this link. So we're gonna put that here. So we're gonna simply say URL. So after that, now we're gonna return. So we're gonna return the data we get to JSON. So we're gonna simply say dot then. This what I'm doing now is what we call JavaScript promises. So I'm gonna simply say response. You can call this any name you like. Also, response is gonna be equal to JSON. So we're gonna use the arrow function converting to JSON, response dot JSON. Okay, after that now we are gonna run another promise again, dot then, and this is gonna be the actual data. So we want to console the data out. Sorry for delays. Okay, I want to get the data. I'm trying to get these keys. The system is not really okay. So now I'm going to simply say console.log data. So this is the actual data. So I'm going to pass this into a function. It's going to look better in a function. So I'm going to create a function. Let's just do a JavaScript function. I'm going to call this function get to dos. So now copy this and paste inside of this function. Okay, I think everything is fine. So after you create a function, don't forget you need to call this function get to dos. Call the function. And before we do anything now, so this is going to get all the to-dos we have in our database and stuff on the back end. Understand? So we want to print this on the browser's console. Before you do anything, make sure the server we have here is running. So let's check. You can see from here our server is off. So let's run the command python manage.py. Okay, python manage.py run server. Make sure the server is on and running. So we're gonna wait a bit while the server runs. Oh, we have an error. The error is from here. I'm gonna show you around. There should have been a comma here. So I'm gonna simply add a comma and save now. The error should disappear. Another error again. Okay, I spelled true wrongly somewhere in the okay, sorry for this. So save now, everything should be fine. So let's run the server again. So the server is now up and running. So now from here, so now let's check the console of the page. So refresh this page. So we should have the to-dos, but we are having nothing yet. Okay, the reason why we are not having the to-dos listed here is because, remember, we are working on ports 8000, and from here you can see we are using port 8000. So I'm going to change that, go down to the browser, to our backend, to the front end, change this to 8000. So save your work now, go back to the browser. You can see now we have the to-dos now. You can see now we have them here. We have 5 of them already. So now we're able to console out the data. You can see, write some lines of code, visit grandmom. That's what you have in the back end. You can see. So now what you want to do now, I want to have this data on the actual application itself, on this HTML page. So let's do that right now. Okay, so now I'm going to write a proper function over here. Okay, put in the curly braces, and now we're going to have a function. So now I'm going to loop through this data. You can see this data returned 5 elements here. So I'm going to loop through it so I can have access to each of these data. So let's do that right now. So I'm going to simply do this now. I'll simply say for let d of data, just like the way we have in our Django, where we say for let's a, or for let's projects in projects. Understand? This d refers to the individual items from this data. This data returned a list of to-dos. Understand? The data refers to the list of to-dos, while the d is the individual to-dos, the individual to-do, just the way we have in Django. Understand? So now I just got the individual to-do. So after getting the individual to-do, what I want to do is this. So I want to get, for my main.html, I'm gonna get this wrapper. So I'm gonna copy it. Can't you see this wrapper? I need to get this wrapper. So I'm gonna simply say let's list container. This is a variable. Let list container equal to. So I'm gonna paste the wrap. That's code here. So let me show you what the code is doing. So if I remove the comments from this, and let's save and go out to the browser, so you can see what I copied is this gray box, the gray box. That's what I copied. So what it's going to do for us now is this. So now you can see this is a loop. It's going to run 5 times because we have 5 items. If we check, because we have 5 items in the database, it's going to run 5 times. As it's running 5 times, it's going to create this, that div I showed you. It's going to create this div 5 times. Okay, so it's going to create the div 5 times. And what you want to do now is this. You want to pass in the value, the name of the to-do, name of the task, name of the to-do. You can see we have a dummy data called pray to God. So I'm going to put in the actual to-do name. So we're going to use what we call JavaScript template literals. That's why we are using this backtip sign, not the normal string quotation. We are using the backtip because we're going to use the template literals. So I'm going to put in the $sign with curly braces, and for this one I'm going to call this one d.title from our back end. From the back end, that field is called title. Understand? So if I can show you, check our models, include app, check the models of Spotify. You can see it's called title. So now go down to the front end now. So I'm going to call this d.title. So now that's done already. So this has been sent to this variable. So after we've done that, you can see now, maybe I should close this. So I'm gonna pick this black bordered rectangle. This is what we call div. So I'm going to select this in JavaScript, this div. So from our code, you see that the div has an ID called subcontainer. Subcontainer is what so I'm going to comment this again. So this div is what is housing all those individual to do wrappers, understand? So I'm going to get this div now with JavaScript. So I'm going to simply come here. So I'm going to simply say let wrapper, I'm going to call it wrapper, let wrapper equal to document dot get. I'm going to get that element through the ID. You see from here, that's an ID subcontainer. So I'm going to simply say let wrapper equal to document get elements by ID sub container. So now I'm going to append this list container inside of this wrapper. So this is how we are going to do it right now. So we've done this. So we'll simply say wrapper plus equal to list container. So just save the work now, get onto the browser. Nothing has been rendered out. So let's see what the problem is. Okay, I've seen the problem. It should be wrapper.inner HTML, not just wrapper. .inner HTML means the content of this element, the HTML content. So I'm going to simply say .inner HTML should be, so this plus equal to, it simply means we are appending, we keep on adding, we are appending this into this wrapper. Understand? I said this wrapper is this black border div. So everything should be fine now. So let's save our work. Still not showing what I want. Oh, this is a problem. It's not working. So let's check the console and show there is no problem. Console, okay, this container is not defined. Okay, so now problem is not far from here. Set select list container. Okay, I see where the issue is coming from. So this should be inside of this loop. So let's see, everything should work now, because this list container can only be available inside of this loop because we are using this let's keyword. So I hope it works now. So it's still not working. Okay, actually this is capital letter. So save. Okay, you can see now it's working. You can see now we completed our field, but I'm going to remove these ones we have here. So just save now. Those first two are going to disappear. Perfect. Now you can see now we have all the data we have from the back end. You can see them. We have them now on this field. We've been able to retrieve our data. We've been able to retrieve them. You can see they are here. So what we want to do next is this. Now I want to be able to add data. So if we add, like let's say go to school, I want to be able to send this data to the back end over here and also update this application. So let's do that right now. Whenever we submit a form, we want to add the data down and this to do, and also make sure this data gets down to the database. Understand? So let's do that right now. So I'm going to simply start here. So now I'm going to simply pick our form. So our HTML form, you can see the form as, so I'm going to give this form an ID so we can pick up this form. let's call this one we're going to give this one an ID called my form. You can call it any name you want. I'm calling my form. So now go down to JavaScript, your JS file. So let's simply pick this form up here. Simply say let form equal to document dot get elements by ID my form. Okay, so now I'm going to add an event listener to this form. So come down to the bottom, simply say form dot add event listener. We're going to add a submit events whenever we submit the form. We're going to check out for this function. So I'm going to add this function inside there. Okay, whenever we submit the form, we want to listen for a function. But before we proceed, whenever we submit this form, you see whenever we click on this button, it's going to reload the page. We don't want that. So to prevent that from occurring, so whenever we're using an event listener, we're always giving a default parameter. You can call this parameter any name you like. I like to call my own E. So we're going to simply say E dot prevent default. So it's going to prevent the default action that's going to take place whenever we submit a form, and that action is the page being refreshed whenever I click on the submit button. So we've just stopped that by saying this E dot prevent default. So whenever you submit a form, what you want to do is you want to submit. So we want to see if this is working. Whenever we submit a form, we want to try and see. We want to print out the value in this input field. So now what am I going to do? So I'm going to simply try, and so I want to get the value. So you're going to get it through this is the field. So I'm going to give this field an ID. I'm going to give it ID called input. So I'm going to get this field through the ID. So okay, so I'm going to simply say let's input value. That field is, so I'm going to say documents. I'm going to simply say documents dot get element by ID inputs. Remember I call it inputs. So dot value is going to, so this document to get element by ID input refers to the field. Understand? So when you add dot value, we are referring to the value inside of the field. So now I want to allow. So what I want to do now, I'm going to put this beneath this. So let's console.log input value. Let's see if it is actually working. So come down here, refresh this page. So we click on the button. You can see the page does not refresh. So let's go down to the console. You can see we have go to school. So once I change this to something else, so let's reduce this a bit. So let's say go to church, and I click add. You can see now we have go to church and the page does not refresh. So now what we want to do now, I'm going to use the fetch API, and we're going to use this from the Mozilla, from mdn.org. I'm going to put this in the description so you can read along and understand how to use the fetch API to send data to a back end. So now I'm going to copy this now. So we're going to be using this. Okay, I'm going to be using this section of the API to send data. Okay, so simply copy this and come down here. Okay, so I'm going to put this inside here, Ctrl V. Yeah, so where is it now? So I'm going to simply briefly explain this so fast. So now what I want to do now, this is the data we are sending. This is data we are sending to this URL. So I'm going to put in our own URL. So the URL we are sending to this URL. Understand? This is what we are sending to. We are sending back to this URL. So I'm going to copy this now. I'm going to copy, and we're going to change this now to this. Ctrl V. Understand? So we are sending to this URL. So you can simply create a variable called let's call this another name. We can call it the same name URL because they are not in the same environment. I'm gonna paste that here. That should be So now I'm gonna put URL here and not this link. Okay, so this data we have here, first the data we are sending to the back end, but so I'm going to change it to what we have inside of the input field, which is this input value. So I'm going to call this any name. Let's just call this let's call it title, the title of the to do. So I'm going to put in the value as input value. Simply copy and I'm going to paste that. Yeah. Okay, this data we are sending down to the back end. You can see this is the key, this is a value. So this is our URL. We are doing a post request. We are sending data. This is the content. It's going to be a JSON content, and here we stringify the data. The data is being stringified. Understand? And here it's converted to a JSON data, and once everything is done, we're going to console.log. If everything looks fine, we're going to console this out. If there is an error, we're going to console this out. So I'm going to cover up the error section because we'll not really be using the error section for now. So now that's done. Okay, so let's see if everything is fine. Okay, I think everything is fine now. So let's try this now and hope it's working. So come down here. So I'm going to go down to this page again, refresh this page. So we have go to church in the field. So click on add. Let's see the back end if it's been sent. Refresh. So let's see, we're gonna get down here. Actually, the data is not being passed to the back end, and I realized I made a mistake. I said I'm sending to a wrong URL. This should have been to this URL we have here, to the create URL, not to this. It should be to the create URL. This is this. Sorry for the mistake. Really sorry. So copy this and come down here again. So I'm going to change this to the URL we just copied. Change this to 8000. We are going on put 8000 now. So you can see now this data we are sending. This data we have in the input field. We have to stringify the data. You can see this is the data, which is what we have here. So that all now, so save, and I hope it should work now. Close the browser. So refresh this. So refresh this page. So click on go to church. Click on the add button. Click on it. So I've clicked on it. You can see there's a success message down here. You can see go to church. You can see we have the ID and other information. So go down to the back end now. Refresh. You can see now we have go to church added to this place. Added here. Go to church has already been added to the back end. So we need to update the front end right now. The back end has been updated, so let's update the front end. So what we're going to do now is this. Okay, so I'm going to simply call this function get to do's. We're going to call it down here again. Understand? So I'm going to remove this. We don't need this one for now. This is what is passing this success message we have here. This last .then. So we don't need it right now. So I'm going to simply comment it out. So now just here, I'm simply going to do this. So now I'm going to do this now. So I'm going to remove this now and simply put in a function here. Let's just create a function. So we're going to simply create a function. I'll just simply call that get to do's function again. So let's see. can see now we have go to church added. So let's try adding something else. Let's say go to school, add. You can see now go to school was added and the previous ones were also added. So let's stop that right now. Okay, so we just come here to the top where we have this list container. So now what I'm going to do is this now. So we are going to set this wrapper to become empty whenever we submit a form. So let's separate this. So whenever we submit a form, we're going to set this wrapper to be empty at the beginning. So it's going to be up here. I'm going to simply say wrapper dot inner HTML should be empty. That means the content there should be nothing inside of the wrapper. Understand? So let's see now. Refresh. You can see now everything is there. You can see everything is fine. No extra addition. So if I add go to work, you can see go to work has been added. You can see that's nice. So now I'm going to comment this so this can be understood. I'm going to comment this. Maybe I pause the video so you save time. So now we've been able to like render out the to-dos we have in the database. Now we can create new to-dos. So what we want to do next, be able to edit or update individual to-dos. Whenever we click on this pen icon, we want to make sure that the whatever item we have get down to this input field. So assuming I click on the first pen icon, I want to make sure that this text comes to this input field so I can edit it. If I click on this third one, I want to make sure that this text comes to the input field so I can edit it. So let's work on that right now. Okay, so let's proceed. So now before I proceed with updating individual items, I'm going to show you something. Okay, you can see now in this section just here we were sending data to the back end. I know in Django, why you are sending data, you need to put in the CSRF token. But here I did not put it instead, and here we are in a kind of different environment. We're using JavaScript. Most of us are not used to JavaScript, understand? So I'm going to show you how to put in that CSRF token in Ajax. It's not difficult. Just go down to the browser and we'll search for. Let's simply search for Django Ajax, Django CSRF token Ajax. Enter. So click on the first link. So now just scroll down a bit. Okay, this function, just copy this function. Copy. So paste it just above. Paste it above. Okay, after you've pasted this function, you're gonna do one more last thing. So just scroll down. Okay, this now you need to copy this section and then copy this. Come down here. So whenever we're having a post request, okay, let's separate it. So whenever we having a post request, like here, whenever we are sending data, just there, something like this, you can see there's a post method. So just in this header, so I'm going to add what we copied here. So paste it. So that's all you need to do. For some people, you might have a 403 error in your console. So to rectify that error, you just have to do what I just did now. You understand? By going down, copying that code and pasting here. So that will rectify the error. So that's it now. That's done. Okay. So now let's go now and update. So I want to be able to update individual to do item. Understand? So let's do that right now. those. So we are going to come down to this function called get to dos, and instead of this function now we are going to work on updating individual to dos instead of this function. Understand? And we're going to start from here. You can see I already wrote the comment so you can see and understand. So the comment is here. So I'm going to simply get all this button. I'm going to get this individual button. So I want to make sure that whenever I click on it, it's going to send the item down to the input field. So let's do that now. So so what I want to do now is I want to select those. I want to pick those submit buttons. So I'm going to simply say let's edit button. Let's edit btn equal to. If you look here, they all have an ID of edit. They all have a class name of edit btn. So let's select edit btn equal to documents dot get class name, or to get class name called edit btn. Hope I'm correct. Okay, correct. So let's console.log out that to see if it actually got btn. I'm gonna say edit btn. Okay, move that, save. So go down to the browser now to the okay, you can see now we have all those individual. If I over around one of which you can see the btn, the button has been lighted up. If I over around the second one, it's been alighted. Okay, so what I want to do next, I want to add an event listener to each of these buttons. So now I'm going to look through the button. First of all, I'm going to look through this button. I'm going to simply say for let's I equal to 0, I should be less than edit btn's dot length and I plus plus. Okay, now I just so now I'm going to say edit btn square bracket I. Understand? Okay, now this edit btn square bracket I refers to the individual button. So I'm going to do now is I'm going to add an event listener to each of the buttons, a click event. So edit btn dot add event listener click. I want to add a click event. Whenever I click on this on the button, I want to run this function. So let's do that right away. So whenever I click on this button, what I want to do is this. I want to make sure that the text associated with each button is being displayed on this input field we have up here. I want to be sure whenever I click on this and any of the buttons, I want to make sure that the text associated the particular button is placed in the field inside of this field. So we're going to do that right now. So if you watch closely from what we have here, this is the button. This is the button I just selected. This particular section I highlighted. So now I want to get this text for each button. So I'm going to do it now. So I'm going to do some trick here. So now I'm going to go down to the parent elements of this button, which is this div class icons container. After that, I'm going to go further down again to the parent elements of this. So what I want to do is that I want to get down to the grandparents of this particular div. That's what I want to do now. So let's do that right now. So I'm going to simply scroll down here. So for the function, so now the function now, so I'm going to simply say let the button grandparents, let btn grandparents. So let's just say grandparents. Let's be equal to. So I'm continuing. So we're going to simply say edit btn square bracket I, which is the individual button. Edit btn square bracket I dot parent elements. dot for the first one, we're referring to the parents. For the second one, the grandparents. So now we're able to get the grandparents, okay, which is this wrapper. So I want to do this. I want to get the first child of the grandparents, which is this particular div we have. I want to get the first child of the grandparents. So now I'm going to simply come down and do this. So I'm going to simply say let's grandparents, these are variables I'm just calling. Let grandparents first child, I'm going to simply say FC for first child be equal to this. You can remember this BTN grandparents is referring to what we have here. It's going to be equal to this. So dot children, the first child, the children 0, which is the first child, dot simply dot inner text, which is the contents. And this might be somewhat hard for you to understand. For those that are not familiar with JavaScript, I'm really sorry that we found ourselves in. So now we've gotten the, so now let's console.log this. So let's console.log grandparents first child. So let's do that now to the browser. So now whenever we refresh the page, whenever we click on, let's click on the first edit button. You can see now down here, you can see I have the text associated with it. Write some lines of code in Python. If I click on the second one, you can see it says visit grandmom. Okay, now I want to pass this value to the input field. So that's what I want to do now. Okay, so now we're going to pick up that input field. Remember, I gave it an ID of inputs. So let's do that right now. So I'm going to simply say documents, or let's just say let's inputs equal to documents dot get elements by ID inputs. So now I'm going to set the value of that input to this grandparent FC. Grandparent FC means grandparent first child. So I'm going to simply say inputs dot value should be equal to grandparent FC. So save. So now maybe onto the browser now. So whenever we refresh this page, so let's click on this. You can see now the value. I'm going to make sure this is big so you can see. So whenever I clicked on the button, you can see the input field as the contents of the button by the side. So I click on the second one, you can see visit grandmom. Click on the other one, then the math class. You can see it's working. Okay, so what I want to do next is this now. I want to check, we're going to run a command, we're going to run a condition. So whenever this grandparent FC is equal to the input value, I want to do something. Instead, the grandparent FC refers to this list we have as the value. So whenever we have this one equal to the value, you can see they are equal. Want to run a command. So let's do that right now. So I'm gonna simply say if inputs dot value is equal to grandparent FC. So I'm gonna run this command. So up here I'm gonna create a variable called, let's call this variable let indicator equal to 0. So whenever they are equal, just like we have here, whenever they are equal, I'm I'm going to set indicator to 1 understand. So after we've done that, okay, so I'm gonna come down there and pass the, you can see I pass the title of those elements from our database. I pass the title here, so I want to pass the ID to this button. So I'm gonna simply say data dash ID. So I'm going to pass a custom attribute now in HTML. To do that, you simply have to just put in data and this hyphen symbol. It's going to be equal data hyphen ID is going to be equal to, so we have d dot ID. That should be template literals like we've been doing before. So now have d.id. Okay, it should be singles, braces and not double. So that's it now. So we've gotten the ID. So I'm going to also create a variable up here to call item ID. Let item underscore ID equal to, let's say it's undefined, there's no value yet attached to it. Item ID is undefined, so whenever we have these two equal to each other, the input value, which is this field, and whenever it is equal to any of these, understand, we are going to set indicator to 1 and we're going to set this item ID, item underscore ID. You can see I created item ID at the top here without a value, so I'm going to assign a value to it. The value is going to be equal to the ID of this button I clicked. You can see I already passed the ID up here, so I'm going to simply say that's going to be equal to this dot data sets. I'm referring to the item I clicked dot ID. So that's what we need to do now. So after we've done this now, so I'm gonna come down here to this point here, to this form here. So before I proceed, if I do that now, I want to make sure that whenever we submit the form, I want to make sure that this field becomes empty. So I'll simply do form.reset. You can see our form, I picked the form here called form, so I'll simply come down here and say form.reset. So that should just be here, form.reset. So I'm gonna remove the data we have there. Okay, that's done. Okay, we're gonna go back again. So I was saying, so here now I'm gonna run an if statement. I'm gonna simply say if indicator is equal to 1, if indicator is equal to 1, I want to change this URL to point to somewhere else. Understand? So I'm going to copy this now. So if indicator is equal to 1, so we're going to send our data to this URL. So I'm going to copy it from here. So you can see I'm going to copy it from here. So just copy this and we'll paste that here. Ctrl V. You can see, so change this to 1000, update ID, update to do. So you are trying to update a particular to do. So I'm going to pass this item ID, I have here. I'm going to pass it down here. So before I do that, so I'm going to change this to the backspace or whatever it's called, so I can pass a value. So I'm going to pass in the item ID. Okay, that's has been done. Okay, because we are trying to update an item, it's not going to be a post request, it's going to be a put request, you understand? So but you can leave it post if only you do this. So come down to the views.py in your API. So you can see where you can see this update to do. You can see this is the function. You can see we put. So as far as we have posts and puts here, whichever method you use is going to work, understand? But if you only have puts here, you're going to make sure that in the JS file, you're going to make sure that we are using puts. But but if you have both of them set in the back end, we can use any of them, they'll both work. So that's all we need to do now. So just save your work now and let's see if what we did is going to work. So refresh this page. I'm going to remove this now. So refresh the page once more. So let's update visit grandma. So click on it. So we have visit grandma on the instead of the field. Let me make this bigger. So I'm going to change this to visit grandpa. So click on the add button. Oh, it did not, because we have visit grandpa beneath. It did not update grandmom. That's wrong. We wanted to update grandmom and not get added, understand? So we don't know what the problem is currently. Okay, so now we can update our items. Everything is working fine. The mistake I made earlier was, I had to also put let's in front of URL. That was wrong. I should have just said, okay, if you see up here, you can see URL has been declared. What I should have done was just simply change the value of URL to this. You can see if indicator is equal to 1, the value of URL changes from this to this. You can see. So that's all you need to do now. So we are updating individual items. So what I want to do now is be able to delete a particular item. So let me show you how the update works. If I click on visit grandmom, go down to the browser now and change it to visit grandpa, you see grandmom will change to grandpa. So click on add. You can see now we now have grandmom turned to grandpa. So now what I want to do now is deleting individual items. Okay, so now I want to work on deleting individual items. So let's do that right now. So we'll also come up here again, just the way we look through the edit button. I'm going to also look through the delete button, understand? So let's do that right now. So I'll simply let's del btn equal to documents dot get elements by class name. Now call that del btn okay. So after doing that now, so also add an event listener to each of the button. Okay, you just do that above this one. I'll simply say del btn. The reason why I'm using this particular loop is because we have the same number of edit button and delete button. That's why I'm using the same loop. So I'm going to simply say del btn square brackets I dot add event listener click. So I'm going to run this function. I'll call it delete to do. So I'm going to do next. I am going to declare this function at the bottom. But before I do that, I want to also add this data ID to the delete button. So I'll copy it and paste in the delete button. Okay, I have that there. So what I'm going to do next is declaring this function at the bottom. Understand? So we just go scroll down to the bottom and just say function delete to do. I can't remember the name. Delete to do. Okay, so we're going to put in the E. So that E, whenever we are using an event listener, we're always given a default parameter. You can call that any name you like. I love to call my E. Understand? So I'm going to simply console.log e.targets. That's I want to see whichever element I click on, it's going to console that for me in the browser. Understand? So I click on this, you can see the trash bin. I click on this. Okay, you can see it's working. So now what I want to do is this. So I'm going to copy that same fetch API. So copy, but not everything this time around. I'll simply copy just here. Okay, paste down here. So now first of all, I want to get the ID of each data. So I'm going to simply say let's delete ID equal to this dot datasets dot ID. So now I just got the ID because I need to pass the ID into the URL. So I'm going to simply do this now. Let's URL equal to, so we're going to copy the URL from here. This is the delete URL, so just simply copy this. So I'm going to paste that, change this to 8000. Okay, so we're going to pass this del ID into this section, and mind you, we're going to use the template literals, so passing this back tip, and after that I'm going to say del underscore ID. Okay, so that done. So we're going to pass in the URL in the fetch API URL. So move this. After that done, we're going to send, we are trying to delete an item, so we are going to make sure this method is now delete and not posts. Okay, that done. Okay, so after that has been done now, so something wrong the, okay, so now we are, we are going to return a promise, yes, and I have to like remove this because we are not sending data, we are trying to delete an item, so this is not needed, this body variable, so I have to remove it. So I'm going to simply say dot then. Okay, we can simply leave it empty. You can simply leave the, let's just say response. You can put in a parameter and use our normal arrow function, and after we've done this, we want to make sure that we call this get to do's function. This get to do's helps to build the to do application, so we need to call it whenever we are updating the application stance. So we need to always call it because it's what it is the get to do's that helps to build the application, so we have to call it. So it's called now. So now let's just simply check down to the browser, save your work to the browser again, refresh this page. So let's read my book. You can see read my book has left the page. So if you get into the backend now, refresh, you can see read my book has also left the page. Understand? So come down here again, let's remove attend the math class. It's gone. Come down here, refresh this page, it's gone. You can see everything is working very fine. Now let's try adding a new item. So I'm going to close this. Let's say go to school, added, let's edit it, go to church, click on add. It should be changed from go to school to go to, it has been modified from go to school to go to church. Okay, we've come to the end of this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. I know you're not used to this kind of content. We're used to Django, but on this one we are doing Ajax and JavaScript. Okay, we'll meet to the next video, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. We'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.